We often feel like we've seen it all, right? Like nothing in the world can surprise us anymore. But then, you hear about these wild stories from Russia that are so out there that they make even the biggest skeptics pause and think, really? Now let's talk about 10 of these super surprising events that have happened there, and I bet they'll leave you extremely shocked. 10. The Tunguska Incident. So there was this really big event that happened in Siberia, Russia, about 115 years ago. It was a normal sunny morning when suddenly something huge happened that people now remember every year on June 30th, calling it Asteroid Day. This is about the Tunguska event. So this Tunguska event was incredibly powerful. It happened over the remote woods near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River in what's now called Krasnoyarsk Krai. The force was so strong that it knocked over 80 million trees in an area of 830 square miles. People saw a huge light in the sky, almost as bright as the sun, and then there was a loud noise and a shock wave that broke windows far away and even made people fall over. But the odd part? There was no crater found. It seems like the asteroid exploded in the sky, not on the ground, in what's known as an airburst, but it still caused a lot of damage below. After a lot of digging into what happened, scientists think it was a big, rocky asteroid around the size of a 25-story building moving super fast at 33,500 miles per hour, and it exploded in the air 3 to 6 miles up. Now, you might wonder why it took so long to figure out all this. It's because it wasn't until 20 years later that researchers, led by a guy named Leonid Kulik, actually went to check out the place. They talked to locals and looked around the damaged forest, but they found no pieces of the asteroid or a crater. This mystery sparked some wild stories, like theories about alien ships or strange cosmic events being the cause. But the truth is still pretty shocking and reminds us that such unexpected events can happen again. I'm not saying we should always be on the lookout for asteroids hitting us out of nowhere, but scientists are on the case. They're working on ways to deal with these threats if they happen again, like hitting the asteroid really fast with something or even using nuclear explosives to break it apart before it enters Earth. 9. Russia Alien Baby. Back in the summer of '96 in Kishtim, a quiet spot in the Ural region, there's this story about a woman named Tamara Prosverina who had schizophrenia. She found an odd creature in the woods and brought it home, naming it Alyoshenka after her son, who was in jail for stealing. This creature, Alyoshenka, was really unusual, not looking like a human at all. It had a small, round, red mouth and eyes that seemed sad, making anyone who saw it feel a tug at their heart. Even Prosverina's daughter-in-law felt a deep sadness around it. The story gets stranger when Prosverina was taken to a mental hospital, and after that, Alyoshenka ended up having a very sad end. Later, a friend of Prosverina turned its body into a mummy. This led to a weird situation where the mummy passed through different hands, eventually ending up with the local police, who didn't really dig into the matter. Then there's Vladimir Bendlin, a local policeman known for his interest in strange things, who ended up keeping the mummy in his fridge. People started making wild guesses about Alyoshenka, with some saying it was from another planet and others thinking it was a child with serious health issues, which could make sense because Kishtim had a nuclear incident in its history. Years have passed, and the whole Alyoshenka situation is still a big mystery. The main people in this story are no longer here, the body has disappeared, and Prosverina tragically died in an accident. So the truth about Alyoshenka has become even harder to figure out. 8. The first dog launched into space. In the fall of 1957, during a really intense time called the space race, the Soviet Union sent a dog named Laika into space. Laika was just a regular stray dog from Moscow, but this journey made her very special. Even though it was an amazing thing to send a living being into space, Laika's trip was also sad, because she was never meant to come back. This event came right after the Soviets had success with Sputnik, their first space satellite, and it pushed the United States to try harder in the space competition. People all over the world had strong feelings about Laika's space trip. In the United States, the media gave her nicknames like Pupnik and Mutnik, using humor but also showing concern. In Britain, people were openly upset, questioning the Soviet Union's decision to send Laika on a journey with no return. The Soviet Union tried to show Laika as a heroic dog, contributing to space exploration and the future of humans. However, the real story of what happened to Laika was quite sad. For a long time, people thought she lived for a week in space. But in 2002, it was revealed that she actually passed away from stress and heat just hours after the launch. This fact brought up a lot of discussion about whether it was right to send Laika into space in this way. Sputnik 2, the satellite she traveled in, orbited Earth for 5 months before it burned up. Laika's story is still an important part of space history. A Soviet scientist, Dr. Vladimir Yazdovsky, shared personal memories of spending time with Laika before her mission, giving her some moments of kindness. Thinking about it, it seems really unfair to have sent such a sweet dog on such a risky journey without a chance to come back. 7. Barisa Kiprianovich. This story I'm going to tell you is about Boris Kiprianovich, also known as Boriska, from Russia. He was born on January 11, 1996, in the Volgograd region, and he's been quite a talker since he was very young. This boy caught everyone's attention with his amazing abilities and his incredible stories about space. Boriska was no ordinary kid. His mom, Nadia, noticed right away because he looked at her so intensely. By 4 months, he was already speaking, and at 1 year old, he was looking through books like he could actually read them. What made Boris really stand out was his love for space, something that didn't come from his parents. He would look at the stars like he knew all about them. Then, at 7 years old, while hanging out with some campers, he casually mentioned he used to live on Mars, and this got him all over the news. He talked about his past life on Mars in interviews, mentioning how the planet faced big troubles like war and destruction. Boris even called himself an indigo child, saying he came to Earth with a special purpose to help prevent similar troubles here. He didn't just talk about Mars. He said that Earth's people have hidden knowledge, with secrets near the Great Sphinx in Egypt. Now, in 2023, Boris, who would be 27, has stepped away from the public. People wonder about him, thinking maybe he's living a quiet life somewhere in Russia, or perhaps he's just enjoying a normal life in Moscow. There are all sorts of stories about him, with some saying he's still in touch spiritually, living peacefully with his mom. But many believe he's chosen to step back from his earlier fame. It's not easy being known as the boy who claimed to have memories of Mars, especially in a world that quickly moves on. So now, Boris's past is a bit of a mystery. Talking about aliens always sends a shiver down the spine, doesn't it? It's fascinating yet spooky. And even though some believe these beings are real and among us, it's hard to say for sure. Are these stories true or just tall tales? We really can't say for certain. 6. Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal in eastern Siberia is more than just a lake. It's a true natural marvel. This lake is the oldest freshwater lake on Earth, believed to be 20 to 25 million years old. It's incredibly deep too, reaching 5,315 feet, making it the world's deepest lake. Spanning 12,200 square miles, Baikal holds the title for the largest freshwater lake by volume, with a whopping 5,500 cubic miles of water. That's about 1/5 of the Earth's fresh surface water. More than 330 rivers and streams, including the Selenga and Barguzin, feed into Baikal, and it flows out through the Angara River. The lake sits in a special geological spot, surrounded by high mountains and featuring a lakebed with hot springs and a history of powerful earthquakes. Baikal has diverse landscapes with steep sides on the west and gentler slopes on the east, plus a shoreline that extends over 1,300 miles. It hosts around 45 islands, such as Olkhon and Bolshoi Ushkani, and enjoys a relatively mild climate, freezing over in winter and thawing in summer, which supports a variety of life. This lake is known for its incredible biodiversity, home to roughly 1,500 to 1,800 animal species, many of which are unique to this area. Its waters are full of interesting creatures like the Omul salmon and the unusual Golomyanka fish. The Baikal seal, the lake's only mammal, and over 320 bird species also thrive here. Despite its natural beauty, Baikal has faced threats from industrial activities like mining and manufacturing. But thanks to environmental efforts starting in the 70s, some protection has been put in place. Today, scientific groups and nature reserves work hard to protect Baikal's unique environment. As a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Lake Baikal has earned global recognition and protection, highlighting a commitment to preserving this ancient and majestic lake for future awe and inspiration. 5. The Soviet Union invented clear Coca-Cola. After World War II, when Europe was divided by the Iron Curtain, the Soviet Union and Western countries were not on good terms. During this time, there's a funny story about Marshal Georgy Zhukov from the Soviet Union, who really liked Coca-Cola, an American drink that was not allowed in the Soviet Union. Zhukov was in a tough spot because he enjoyed this drink that symbolized America, which was a big no-no in his country. To solve this, the Truman administration in the US secretly helped to get him Coca-Cola, turning this into a strange diplomatic mission over a soft drink. Coca-Cola wasn't just any drink. It became a symbol of American spirit during the war, helping to boost soldiers' morale. The company even set up bottling plants near where battles were fought to make sure soldiers could have Coca-Cola, and they sent a lot of it to troops during the war. Zhukov got to like Coca-Cola while meeting with Eisenhower, a leader from the Allied forces, after the war. But back in the Soviet Union, he couldn't just drink it because of the ban on Western products. So he came up with an idea to have Coca-Cola made without its usual brown color, so it looked like vodka and could be drunk without drawing attention. This special request got all the way to President Truman and then to James Farley at the Coca-Cola Export Corporation, who managed to make this clear Coca-Cola. It was sent in plain bottles with a red star on the cap, looking a bit Soviet, but tasting like the American drink. This secret Coke was delivered to Zhukov in Vienna, sneaking past the usual checks. This weird moment in history shows how the Cold War era was full of complex and sometimes funny incidents. Despite this secret Coca-Cola operation, the Soviet Union later ended up liking Pepsi more, leading to a strange trade where Pepsi got some Soviet warships in exchange for their soda. So, Zhukov's secret love for Coca-Cola is just a small, quirky part of the bigger Cold War story, showing how personal tastes and global politics can sometimes mix in unexpected ways. I get why you find Coca-Cola refreshing after a long day. It's a popular favorite. The idea of risking so much for a drink seems like a huge deal, showing how much Zhukov must have loved it. And thinking about that clear Coca-Cola, it sounds pretty interesting, right? I'd be curious to try it too if it ever made a comeback. 4. The State Russian Museum in St. Petersburg. The State Russian Museum in St. Petersburg, founded by Nicholas II in 1894, is a treasure trove of Russian art. It's a huge place covering around 110,000 square feet, dedicated to showing off Russia's art history. Initially named after Nicholas's dad, Alexander III, this museum was all about celebrating Russian creativity, standing out from the Hermitage's wider European collection. The museum started with pieces from the Hermitage and private collectors, focusing on works from the Imperial Academy of Art. The royal family had a say in what got added, making the collection pretty special. The Mikhailovsky Palace, this big, beautiful building, became the museum's home, mixing European style with Russian artistic flair. By 1902, the museum was growing fast, adding an ethnography department, and after 1923, it became public and even more collections came in, especially after the Revolution, when lots of artworks were added to the nation's collection. During the Soviet times, the museum got even bigger, adding more buildings like the Stroganov Palace and Marble Palace, showing off more of Russian culture and architecture. The museum doesn't just stick to Russia. It's got a spot in Malaga, Spain, and shows off Russian art all over the world. At home, it works with other museums across Russia, making sure lots of people get to see its art, offering art therapy and programs for everyone. The art in the museum tells the story of Russia, starting from the Christianization in 988, with icons showing religious life. As time went on, art in Russia got more varied, especially under Peter the Great, who brought in European styles but kept Russian traditions alive. In the 19th century, artists like the Wanderers focused on real-life scenes and nature, moving away from just religious or royal themes. Ilya Repin's work, for example, showed the tough lives of people in Russia at that time. In the 20th century, Russian art changed a lot, with influences from the West and new ideas in movements like avant-garde and suprematism, but later, socialist realism became the main style, showing life in the Soviet Union. 3. Russians built a turbojet train in 1960s. During the 1960s, in the middle of the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union were competing not just in space, but also in creating groundbreaking technology on Earth. One of these wild ideas was the turbojet train, which was like giving a regular train the power of a jet plane. It's not clear who first came up with this idea, but it was definitely daring to attach jet engines to a train car. Recently, a piece of Russia's jet train history was found abandoned on an old railway, a rusty piece of the Cold War era. This train, back in its prime, must have been an impressive sight, racing down tracks at speeds of 250 to 350 kilometers per h. The idea was simple, yet futuristic. Take big jet engines, often reused from old planes, and fix them to the front of the train. With a bit of design tweaking to make it more streamlined, you get a turbojet train. But this exciting idea had its drawbacks. These trains used a lot of fuel, and the railway tracks back then couldn't handle such high speeds. Any small problem with the track could lead to big trouble. So, this fast train idea was eventually shelved, and the last pieces of this Soviet project are now slowly rusting away near the Kalinin railcar factory, a quiet nod to a time of bold engineering dreams. Some might laugh at how over-the-top this concept was, but it's these kinds of bold experiments that often lead to new advancements. The remains of the turbojet train represent the early steps toward the high-speed trains and magnetic levitation, maglev systems we admire today. Now, this old jet train sits forgotten, a piece of history that shows how eagerly people once raced toward the future with some truly jet-speed ideas. 2. Bizarre creature is uncovered at a Russian diamond mine. Deep in Siberia at the Udakny diamond mine, miners found something that's really gotten people talking. This place, far north of Yakutsk, Russia, was where they discovered what's been called a monster mummy, a preserved creature that has sparked a lot of curiosity. Could it be a fox, a pine marten, an otter, or something even older? This discovery in Udakni, which fittingly means lucky, has everyone buzzing with ideas, from realistic guesses to wild theories about dinosaurs. However, it seems more likely that this creature was something familiar, with its long backbone, bits of fur, and teeth that suggest it was a mammal, maybe a wolverine, a small dog, or maybe it really is just a fox. This mysterious find is now on its way to Yakutsk for scientific study to figure out exactly what it is. Udakni isn't just known for this strange mummy, it's a major player in the diamond world, known since 1955 for digging up a lot of gems every year. The town even has a past, marked by huge efforts to mine these treasures, including a big explosion underground in 1974 to create the mine. The diamonds in Udakni come from very old volcanic rocks, known as kimberlite pipes, which have brought up not just gems, but now, apparently, this ancient creature too. Even though the monster mummy might not be as old as the dinosaurs, it's been perfectly kept in the cold Siberian conditions. So, in this place known for its valuable stones, there's now a mummified mystery connecting the past and the present, waiting to tell its part in the story of nature and the history of Siberia. 1. Inside the M Triangle. Talking about UFOs was off-limits in the Soviet Union until the late 1980s. However, when those times ended, discussions about aliens picked up, especially around a place called the Perm Anomalous Zone, or the M Triangle, deep in the Ural Mountains, far east of Moscow. This area got famous after 1989 and was often compared to America's Area 51 because of all the strange stories coming from there. The M Triangle, covering a big area near the small village of Molebka, welcomes visitors with a huge statue of a grey alien, marking the entry into a mysterious world. Unlike the secretive American site, people can visit this Russian area, but to explore the really strange parts, you might need someone local who knows their way around. This place is legendary for its weird happenings. There are stories of UFOs of different shapes, odd sounds with no clear source, fireballs in the sky, and even a spot where suddenly cell phones work in a place they shouldn't, letting people make calls to far-off places. Some visitors have even said their watches stopped working correctly. Then there are incredible personal accounts like people meeting unusual beings, or someone like Pavel Mukhortov, who supposedly became a genius after visiting, suggesting the zone has life-altering powers. Nowadays, the M Triangle still attracts those who are curious or looking for adventure, with many hoping to witness something truly out of the ordinary or maybe even change their lives. This place is a mix of natural beauty and mysterious stories, keeping the allure of Russia's UFO scene very much alive. All right, we've wrapped up our intriguing exploration of the mysterious events recorded in Russia. I'm really keen to know what you think about this puzzling event. Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's get a conversation going about these mysteries that keep us guessing from that part of the world.